Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should. And please check out getitinwriting.net/shows for a full list of our podcast YouTube series.
My guest is John Jennings. He is co-founder and vice president of sales and marketing for Royer Labs. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for coming by.
Let's get into a little bit of your background. I'm sure that, like most of us, you had something of a checkered career. I'm assuming that you may have started out as a musician.
However would you have guessed that?
I just call it a hunch.
Yeah, okay. I did. I was going to be a rocker. It was my destiny. I found piano as a kid, loved that. Found drums at 10. 9, actually. Took lessons, learned how to read, drum charts and really enjoyed that. And then one summer, a family member showed up with a guitar.
Said, "Do you want to learn a song?"
And man, I just could not put a guitar down after that. So ended up getting an electric for Christmas at 12.
Learned all 4 chords.
Yeah, all of them. Man, if you could just play a power A.
Come on, that's what you did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Was a guitarist all through high school. Had a band that when I was 16, my band started. It was our high school band, but we were pulling good crowds back then. And we were playing all the clubs on the Jersey Shore from Asbury on up to Long Branch and Seabright and Sandy Hook. And so we're playing all these clubs, and everybody thought we were old enough. And Clarence Clemens lived in Seabright. And so we saved a few songs, John Tropez, Mr. Magic, and a couple of others, sort of like just really good groove dance songs for him. He liked playing on. He would just come down, bring a sax, and start playing. And I was like, we always had a mic set up in case Clarence showed up, because that was great.
I love it. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. We moved to San Francisco, as you did at one point, as a troubled 19-year-old. And then.
Is there any other kind of 19?
No, there's not, but we all know we're unique at that age. Our problems are so unique.
Yes.
Got out there, learned the meaning of that great phrase, wherever you are, there you go. Or wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
Played some there, went up to Oregon because my sister lived there, just to spend a little time in Ashland with her. That was a year, then back to Philly. And anyway, just was doing a lot of playing in the Philly and New Jersey area for a while. I had a band that was, really working toward a deal.
Of course, because you were still going to be a rock star.
Of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I finally realized it was just a little too poppy for me. Got out of that. Started working with another guy who moved out to LA. Basically had a signed music deal with that one. Come on out. Great, we're going to do it. I'm playing for a couple of days. The producer one day said, "Yeah, I'm just not quite feeling it." And I'm like, "This is exactly what you were into before you had me come out here." Not feeling it. So I'm out. I'm standing on the corner one day on Hollywood and some street sort of like in East Hollywood.
The good part of Hollywood.
Yeah, right. Being told I don't have the gig. It's like, no, I just moved out here for this. And the next day I go there to get my stuff, and there's a nice Marshall rig there. It's Brad Gillis. So he had worked with the guy in the past, and I think realized he could get Brad, and of course that's better for the band.
Yeah.
So lessons learned. So
I ended up stuck in LA with no gig.
With no gig, ended up taking a job with this phone company doing phone and data stuff. And
I did that too.
Did you really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. That was actually, for me, part of the introduction into left brain stuff, which is something I'm always fascinated about, is how, as a musician, I mean, obviously, the left brain is engaged to learn an instrument, but by the time you get to a certain point, it's mostly right-brained. It's mostly intuitive kind of stuff. Whereas a lot of us then take the path of engineering or something that's more left-brained again. And I'm always fascinated with people's careers as to where that diversion happens and how it happens, because it happens differently for everyone.
It does. Mm-hmm. So everybody's got a different story, but a lot of times it's the same kind of trajectory.
Yeah. So what was yours?
Mine was working, and I had long hair back then, working as a telemarketing manager with this company that was selling data and telecom services. We ended up moving into offices downtown LA in the Wells Fargo Tower.
Ooh.
And my boss back then, who is one of my dearest friends now, a guy named Mike Mann, said, look, if you'll cut your hair, you got a gig in sales here. Not on the phone, not running a room, but like out there. Mike always believed in what he called the awesome power of the promise of the future. And, painted this picture. I'm like,
sounds deep.
Ooh. Oh, it makes you think. The awesome power of the promise of the future.
It's a lot of words.
You got to watch it when people are using that on you because it's big, but it's pretty phenomenal. So I ended up wearing a suit and tie downtown for a few years, working with all the top, companies down there, getting some really interesting data services going, doing tours of the networks and things. And I really enjoyed that. And then through a set of circumstances, met this really interesting designer, this autistic guy who wouldn't talk at all at first, named Dave Royer. And one thing led to another, and there was an opportunity to start a company with his designs.
And these were microphone designs.
Mic designs, preamp compressors. It was stereo preamps, stereo compressors, a compressor preamp combo. And it was called an MPC-1, mic pre-compressor 1. And he had been making these as one-offs in LA, and rental studios couldn't keep them in. They're just really great little units. I've got one sitting out there. And that and his mic was very 47-ish. When we started that company, Lang grabbed one of the mics and one of the mic pre-compressor combos. And I never spoke to him, but his engineer, the guy that was working closely with him, said he was using it, pretty often on Shania, which was great. I couldn't get an endorsement out of that, but George Peterson with Mix Magazine, wonderful guy.
Absolutely.
Was the only one who would even look at us and gave us some coverage. And
of course. I mean, George is one of the saints of our industry.
he is.
Yeah.
George is a wonderful guy. I mean, every time we come out with something new, he's out there making sure everyone sees it. I love it.
Yeah.
No matter where he is. And I know Mix obviously for years, and that's front of house, but George gave us some coverage. And that company died. We got the mistakes out of the way. You have to get them out of the way.
Of course.
But in the meantime, I met a guy named Rick Parada. And during that time, Dave was talking about ribbon mics. And along with everybody else, I had zero interest. Like, ribbon, Dave, those are dead. Those are those big hulky things. They sound all,
And plus they break.
And they break.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fragile. They're old. Forget it, Dave. Come on. But then I read an article one day where Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Kramer was talking about how he always had a buyer, I think it was an M160 on Hendrix's cabinet, along with other mics. But it got me thinking about ribbons. And that night on the way home, I'm on Moore Park. You probably know this, Moore Park, hopping on the 101.
Yep.
Turn on the radio right on top of Third Stone from the Sun. And, and it was so lush and gorgeous, and my mind just kind of went. It was like when you first discover, what girls are about when you're 12. It's that's amazing. It was that same kind of revelation. And then Dave and I started the ribbon discussion the next day, and we had to kill that first company, but it led to meeting the right folks to do Royer with, and that's been a pretty great ride. So the music sort of took backseat. I did have some bands and some gigs,
I mean, while you were doing the data stuff, were you still focused on the music industry, or did you kind of extricate yourself and then get pulled back?
Well, it was a busy job. I was putting in 10, 12-hour days, But I had a band that was a couple of different bands, and one was quite good. Getting some real attention, and then unfortunately the singer developed lead singer disease.
Oh,
And, this was a female singer who was excellent, but decided to go her own way because she was going to have
be a rock star.
Yeah,
Of course.
I've had it happen a few times. It's unfortunate.
I have never heard of that before.
Never had to deal with that, huh?
Yeah. We all know it well. Mhm.
Yeah. So, no, I was always pursuing that stuff.
So you were always, music was still in the back of your mind at all times in that sense. Okay.
Yeah. To me, the suits were aliens. I mean, I had been a musician my whole life and had done, part-time jobs to keep the living, keep the bills paid when the music wasn't paying enough. But going down there and getting into that world was really a revelation, because I realized, man, well, we're all just people. And when I would tell anyone, well, I'm playing in a band, I do some music work. Oh my God, wow, I want to come see you. And the next thing you know, half the office is showing up someplace and everyone's going crazy. And this is what I wish I could do that too.
I had a gig working for the phone company for a few years as a tech. And every person I would meet, when I would tell them I was, this is just my day gig, I'm in a band, Oh, really? Where are you playing? Because people are genuinely excited about that. And I think that sort of keeps your spirit going,
It does. But it's also a great thing to realize, these people who you thought might have been looking down on you because you might have a little, sensitive musician opinion about it all.
Right.
Realize they're like, oh, you play great. They really like that. No, you made some great friends. And realize, business people, musicians, whatever. I mean, we're all in the same world here.
Yeah.
And so it's been a good ride. The last probably 5 years have gotten so busy that I've been doing less playing than ever, and it's bugging me. So really working to get back to it. And you can set up a fairly simple home studio, but with the right mic, interface, and some recording knowledge, you can lay down a pretty good track. I work with tons of musicians to record the tracks at home, and there's nothing like a band in a room.
Well, and that's one of the things that I find a little bit disheartening, is that there are so many people now who, they're excellent musicians. They're a lot of times even well-established producers who have not really had the experience of playing live with other people. And there's such a dynamic there. And the way we make music now has changed so much that it's really rare that you get the whole band together to just lock in and really record a track and have that experience.
And it feels so good. Dave Cobb, the producer, has the old RCA studio here in Nashville.
Oh, sure.
And man, that's a big room. You hear any reflections, it's so big.
Yeah.
And I was over there for a Chris Stapleton setup, and the band isn't around. And all that stuff is recorded, solos and everything at the same time.
Yeah.
And what a vibe.
Yeah.
You could have that all recorded separately and then try to pull that all together. But there's bleed, good sounding bleed. That really brings some cohesion to things. And there's just a band pumping. Wow, what a vibe. It's one of the reasons that stuff sounds so good.
Oh, yeah. I years ago when I lived in Europe, at one point I had the privilege of visiting Abbey Road. And first of all, I can't tell you what a feeling it is to walk down those steps in Studio 2.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But you look at that room and you think, so they did everything live in this room with just a bunch of gobos in between them, and it's not a terrific room. In fact, it's kind of ugly and old faded acoustical tile and everything. Really just, but you can just feel the fact that the space itself was so conducive to just the vibe. And I think that's so important. And that's something that we have almost honed out of existence with perfecting things now. And,
Yeah, perfection is so overrated. Vibe. There's some, not to just go, there's no school like the old school, but you listen to some of the Zeppelin stuff and you just hear the flubs here and there. It's like this brings so much energy. Some of the tuning stuff is just not happening, but it was all about the vibe and the energy there.
It's just this kind of feeling between musicians that I don't think anything can replicate.
I don't either. And if you're going to music school or you're growing up, at least in high school, I think, people get together and they play. If all they're learning how to do is sit at home and lay down a track, without other people, there really is something missing there. Somebody really creative and super musical could make some fantastic music like that. There is some great music, and it's being made in a very different way. But that energy of a bunch of people just getting together, or however many people getting together and getting solid, is pretty amazing.
Absolutely, it's all a different art form, and there are so many there's nothing that's not valid in that sense. There was a great video going around a couple of years ago of Billie Eilish and Phineas cutting a vocal into, I mean, literally like cutting it syllable by syllable, you know, and you looked at the final track and it was like, you know, 1,400 different takes, you know, sliced together and everything. And, you know, good, I mean, credit to the dude, man. He made it sound great, you know, and everything. But it's different than, I remember speaking with Ed Stasium, and Ed was telling me about cutting Gladys Knight's vocal on Midnight Train to Georgia. He said she did the entire thing in one take. She called him up a couple of days later and said, I want to redo one line. And she came in to a different studio. He put up the tape. She punched in one line. Other than that one line, it's
One take.
just,
Wow.
yeah,
Because
continuous
that's
performance.
such a great performance.
It is. It is. And that, I think, to me, that's more important. It's more viable. I mean, and, you know, again, like I said, there are nothing against anybody who can cut and paste, nothing against anybody who can do a great track with loops. It's a different kind of music. And, you know, there are brilliant, brilliant artists and producers who can do that. But I think there is no substitute for people just playing together live and getting that particular energy.
Yeah, I'm
between
so on that page.
Yeah.
You know, my ears have paid for it because I was a tone freak. Loved tone. It's just like all the amps I have a special thing to me.
Yeah.
And I really want to hear it. So and this year's down, you know, a pretty good chunk in the mids. But that happens. You know, I look back.
Occupational hazard, yeah.
Yeah, occupational hazard. I look back and I think about that super reverb on the right for years and where this year's at. And I'm like, would I want to trade that? And what those years were like? No.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
But
maybe
for me it was being the bass player and standing like right near the drummer. You know, the crash was right there, you know. So yeah, you lose a little bit of high end. It's a damn shame. And I'm grateful that we have gotten to the point where people are aware now of protecting their hearing.
Me too.
I think in-ear monitors are a godsend.
Incredible.
Not only for musicians in terms of protecting their hearing, but for mixers,
Yeah.
for front of house people. Oh my God, you know, just the idea of a clean stage without all of that slapback and you know, looped audio coming from the monitors and everything,
Yeah.
you know. But I would not trade it, you know. I mean, that energy of playing live together, that is just such an inimitable thing.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Although, you know, I've got some plugs now that'll just bring it down 12 dB. Man, what a difference that would make.
Yeah.
You know, to still have the vibe, sort of hear enough of what's going on to really feel it.
Yeah.
Not have it interfering with your singing and so forth.
Useful when you go to shitty concert. I mean, no, did I say that? So tell me a little bit about how you migrated from, how you ended up becoming more of a marketing guy for this company. I mean, you didn't necessarily plan on that aspect of your career, did you?
Never. Really wasn't where I was headed. But I learned in that gig I had to take with the communications company that obviously you've got to develop some marketing chops, some sales chops. I read up like crazy on, you know, sales and marketing and just sort of developed some skills there. But what happened with Royer, well, actually, let's go back to the first company. It was called DVA. It was the first company I had with Dave. When Dave cooked up that first, well, when we started talking about ribbons, and we didn't have the 121 at that point. We didn't have his original prototype. But I had seen what he was capable of doing, and I'm thinking, man, if you're right about this, this is going to really change a lot of people's lives. As a musician in my 20s, I did a lot of studio work in Philly. You know, with my band, and I'd go in and play with some other people. You know, I was no hotshot studio guitarist, but I had a lot of friends, and they wanted me to come in and lay parts. Great, you know, lay solos or rhythm parts or whatever, you know, little ear candy stuff. And I'd be standing at the amp, and you know, you're listening to this, you're listening to just all this stuff, and then you go in the control room, and you get this like pinprick of it. And it's like, oh man, there's so much missing.
Yep.
You know, like
Nobody's going to hear this like we heard it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you play an aggressive A, and you go in the control room. You know, it's like it's you can make great rock and roll out of that. You can put a 57 on a cab and get great stuff. And what's missing in your low end can be made up with, you know, good bass player nailing it in there. But there was just so much tone missing, and I was always disappointed. It was just always hard to go in the control room and go, great, that's what it's turned into. Even working with some great engineers.
You sound like a guitar geek, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. One to another, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when Dave started talking about what ribbons could do, and I started understanding where they were at, I was like, Dave, if you're right about this, this could really change a lot of people's lives. A lot of guitarists, you know, if you can get something that'll really capture a guitar amp, how great.
Now, Dave was also addressing the fragility issue. I don't want to overlook that because that was the big hindrance with ribbon mics for so long.
It was. It was. So a few things happened there. The traditional way to corrugate a ribbon element is to put it between two pieces of glassine paper, run it through a hand cranked set of gears. It comes out the other side. You pull the glassine off, and it's a wavy
corrugated. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has to be corrugated because if you were to hang this little thin strip of aluminum, you know, from two ends and hit it with any
toast.
Immediately it's gone.
Yeah.
But the corrugation sort of turned it into a slinky, lets it move,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But because those corrugations are kind of wavy, if you lay it on its side for, you know, a year, that thing might stretch out a little bit. Even the very minimal weight of a ribbon could stretch it. And as you hit it with high SPLs on anything, you know, put it close on a guitar cab, it's just going to stretch it out.
Right.
What happened at Royer is Rick Parada is the president of Royer. And Rick is sort of the unsung hero there. Rick worked with Dave on everything. And in the case of those corrugations, Rick designed a corrugator that's insanely expensive because everything is machined to perfection. And the gears are a couple $1,000 a pop. But they're perfect. And you can run ribbon elements through without the glassine paper. These things sit underneath lights just enough to keep that temperature just so you don't shred the ribbon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll go through and you'll come out the other end with a ribbon that's been bent in all these places. So there's many more corrugations. And if you take any metal and you pound it or you bend it, you work harden it. So you've got a little work hardening going on around all these bend points.
Makes sense.
So you've got this ribbon element that has got many more corrugations. They've been toughened up a little bit through this direct corrugation process. And that thing can fly, man. You can really move that element around without stretching it out. Now, wind is the enemy. You can take it, you know, you can stick it on Joe Perry's live cabinet. He got dimes everything. And they travel with a bunch of 121s on his cab.
Yeah.
You know, no problem. They'll take it for 10 years. Give it to a 2-year-old. That's it. Damn it. You know, the wind just blew the ribbon out. You know, wind is the enemy. But SPLs that used to kill ribbons don't, because of Rick Parada's direct corrugation system. And we have a patent on that. There's also, we offset the ribbon toward the front, which we have a patent on too. It's called the offset ribbon, which gives you more room to drive that ribbon with high SPLs.
Yeah.
And the thing is, normally you've got a ribbon element hung in the center of a magnetic field. If you drive it too hard, you kind of get out of that prime magnetic field and you literally run into some frequency distortion issues as it gets out of that. So if it's toward the front of that prime magnetic field and you're driving it backward, it's always in, you know, a perfect
larger field.
land.
Yeah.
So that's how you can hit those things so hard.
Okay.
And we've got a ton of mics out there on the road with you know, some heavy players.
Oh, I know. I mean, yours is the standard for that, you know, and that's one of the things that was always interesting to me was that somebody finally figured out how to make a ribbon mic that could be used in a live situation, because that was so, you know, I mean, nobody took ribbon mics on tour.
No.
Because, you know, you might as well just drop it off the top of the building now. Be done,
Yeah, right.
you know?
Yeah. Ciao.
Yeah.
You know, Foo Fighters last tour, they've got a lot of Royers in the studio, but we got to call him out. You know, we're going on the road. This was pre-COVID. We're talking 5-6 years back. And we were just coming up with a new mic called the R10. And it had a 3-layer windscreen system in it and a shock mounted transducer. And we're like, try this one. We sent some prototypes over, never got them back.
Of course.
And yeah, and those have been sitting on Dave Grohl's cab ever since.
No
live
doubt.
cabs. And
That's what happens, you know. No, I like this. I'm keeping it. Yep.
yep.
Send me a
And
bill.
they're
Yeah.
I was gonna say they're even tougher than the 121s.
Wow.
You know, you can send those to, and that's my particular favorite live mic. We've got these live series mics with the thicker ribbons. We've got a tech award for them, but I think we're gonna discontinue them because this R10 is better, and it's a $600 mic. It's not a $1,500 mic.
Yeah. Amazing.
a
All
great
right, so let me loop us back around to what we were talking about in terms of your orientation from musician to sales and marketing person, because a lot of the students that I meet, a lot of the younger people that I talk to who come into the audio industry, they have their focus set on, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be my career path. And they start realizing pretty early on that, oh, actually, there's all these other tangents that one can take, and we each take at least one or two of them in our lifetimes.
Oh, yeah.
So how did this work for you, where you all of a sudden realized one day, I'm pretty much doing I'm working with a manufacturer. I'm doing a gig that's not what I thought I would be doing. And yet it's not only something I really love, but it's something that keeps me involved and gives me a different perspective on what other people do.
So it's an interesting thing. I think one of the most important things that I have learned just in life, and looking back, man, it just plays over and over and over, is that it's not always the doors that open for you that are important. It's those doors that are closed on you that send you somewhere else. And I look back at my dreams and everything I wanted to do. Great dream, but I wouldn't change where I've landed because I really feel like I've been able to make a contribution in it. And the doors that got closed led to, in my case, led to, my work at Royer. And as Royer really started taking off in the early days, it's like, man, I've really got to bone up on marketing. There was a fantastic little book called the 24 Immutable Laws of Marketing.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of that one.
Oh man, it's so good. And it's old school now, but I read this book and it was such truth. And it basically said, if you're first in your industry, here's how you approach things. If you're second, here's how you approach things. If you're coming in behind and you're new competition to something that's a king of the hill, here's how you approach things. We were the first out the gate with the modern ribbon microphone. So
you had a target on your back right away.
Well, we had a target, but I also had a set of directions in this book that were fantastic, and I still play by them because Royer really is sort of like the leader in the modern ribbon mic market, and there's a lot of other ribbons out there now, but the book still informs what I do.
Your exposure to marketing was sort of almost accidental, and yet it really started informing what you were doing when you were confronted with this new company, essentially.
Yeah.
Was there any point where you felt like you were compromising your artistic dreams?
No, never. I always felt like I was making a contribution. And I felt like Royer was making a contribution because, my artistic dream back in the day was to get a great sound and then capture that and be able to, reproduce that. I couldn't do it. So with Royer, we're able to help musicians really capture that sound. So, and let me just run down this path for a minute. I remember in our very early days, doing a demo CD, and I asked this great harp player, Gail Levant, if she would come play some harp. She said, yes. Are you kidding me? This is like the premier harp player. She still is in LA, and her husband is John Richards, great engineer.
Yeah.
So Gail and John show up to the studio, and it's wintertime, and LA doesn't get that cold, but the heater had blown out, and it was hard. So, it was cold in there. She's in there playing, and it's cold, but she did this beautiful piece. And then she came into the control room, and we played it back. And I watched her husband. I'm sitting behind them, and I watched her husband looking at her. And he gets this look on his face. And she turns around after we listened, and she's got tears running down her face. She said, "This is the first time I've ever heard a recording of my harp the way it sounds when I'm playing it." I was like, wow, that's what we got into this thing for, because it does that with guitars. Had the same experience on a session at Warner Brothers where a violin player did a solo. The whole orchestra takes a break, and this great violin player with the Stradivarius comes up. I don't remember who it was. It was for a Hans Zimmer movie. And Alan Meyerson had put up an SF-12. Guy plays his part, came in, and during playback, just tears running down his face. And he said the same thing. It sounds like my instrument. I had the same experience with the pipe organist at the Morbid Tabernacle Choir. We did a big mic up day one day. I love those guys. And we invited him to come down into the control room, which was a nice room. And, he had a really visceral reaction to it. Joshua Bell, the great violin player, has always got one over him now. Yo-Yo Ma, Eddie Van Halen, Ross Hogarth did his last record.
Oh, Ross loves Royers. I know.
Oh, Ross. Yeah. And Ross, I got something about Ross. Everything that we've ever made has, outside of the 121, has gone to Ross first. Because he's got such good ears, and he doesn't hold anything back.
Yes.
As we all know,
Absolutely.
Ross
love
is
Ross.
on his mind.
Yep.
Me too. Love him. Ross was really helpful in our early days. Joe Barresi was too. Fired up that original 121 on an unknown band. Took this unknown mic, put it on the unknown band. The unknown mic became the 121. The unknown band became Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that mic,
I just happen to have. Here's one we made earlier.
Woohoo! One day, in between those two companies, DVA and Royer Labs, opening, Dave shows up and says, "Do you think we can sell this?" And it's in this sock, and he pulls this thing out.
Oh my God.
And that's the first 121.
That is the very first one.
Yeah. It had a sticker on it that said Mojave Audio. We started a Mojave Audio, 5-6 years after Royer to do Dave's condenser mic designs. But back then he had a company, well, it was his own little thing. It was in his garage. He would modify amps, modify mics, do anything electronic.
And that was Mojave
people
Audio.
were into. So he stuck a little Mojave sticker on that, which is worn off now, but that's number one.
Wow.
We did a video with Josh, the
Gorgeous.
singer guitarist of Queens of the Stone Age. Mm-hmm. And I pulled this out. He went off. "That effing sock! I remember that sock!" He went off on the sock because it wasn't clean. And I cannot repeat what he said it looked like it was used for. It was
Does it have anything to do with the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it's clean now.
Okay, good. Glad you laundered it.
Yeah, a couple times. But you got to keep the two together, man. The sock and the mic shall remain inseparable.
Well, it's interesting because Dave, being the kind of mad genius savant that he is, I've always found it fascinating that he's got Royer on one side, you've got Mojave Audio on the other side, both really stellar companies.
Thanks.
Boutique companies, and yet they're almost like night and day. It's almost like two aspects of his personality in a way.
They are.
And of course part of it is, you've got Dusty on one end and you on the other end, which is an interesting mix of personalities too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny because I look at the Mojave Audio stuff and then I look at the Royer stuff, and it's almost hard to fathom that the same person came up with these very different ideas,
Yeah, Dave's brain will go wherever it wants to go. I mean, he loves condensers too. Mm-hmm. He loves just recording sound. He's a classical music buff. He could care less about pop. I mean, pop is, but the criteria for the 121, the original design criteria was, quote, "It had to faithfully reproduce every note of a pipe organ." That was his design criteria. He wanted that mic to be able to get everything faithfully, really, really captured well with his condensers. He's got some small diaphragm designs that are wonderful. But man, the large diaphragms, the MA300, is really one of my favorites. The MA1000, now their new MA 37. There's really good mics being made there.
Oh yeah,
And-
no question.
Yeah. So it's just, Dave will go where Dave goes in terms of creating sound.
We did a panel on mic design at the NAMM show. I think it was either last year or year before. I did a panel with Dusty and Dave,
Oh man,
and
that had to be fun.
It's so funny because when Dave can be very, very quiet and almost withdrawn, and then all of a sudden you say one thing that sets him off, and boy, he is just—it's like, wow, this guy is absolutely—he's a mad genius, no question about it.
No question about it. I've had literally hundreds of hours of after-hours conversations with Dave. Everybody leaves Royer. We sit down for a couple hours, hundreds of times, many hundreds of times. I'm not a particularly technical person. Dave is a off the charts technical guy.
Oh yeah.
And I felt like my job was trying to just understand some of the things he was saying and then translate that. I teach a class called Ribbons 101. And, Royer always said, ribbons hear more like the human ear than in any other kind of microphone, which is very true. If you
Makes sense.
like the sound of something in a room and get a good ribbon on it, and you can really capture that. You can even get like to the intention of a classical, musician. Just there's so many subtleties and nuances that ribbons can grab that others really can't. And that's not to say they're always the best mic choice for whatever you're trying to
Depends
record.
on the source, of course.
Right. But I spent a number of hours, like I said, literally hundreds, talking with Dave, trying to understand what he was saying about what different microphone types actually do, where their benefits are, what their disadvantages are, and was able to sort of distill that, take Dave's brilliant but massively techie thing and boil it down to something really simple that somebody in a high school could understand.
That's an art form in itself. Being able to do that is an art form, I think.
Yeah, and we do it with sound. I mean, a lot of sound samples. It's like you can talk blue in the face about something and just have it blow over the head. Listen to it a couple times and boom, you got it.
Yeah.
Something about transient response or overshoot or frequency response. Show a few very clear examples. Boom, got it.
So let me wrap this up with a question that I think is relevant to a lot of the younger people that we meet now in the industry. You started out with one direction, you went into a whole lot of other directions, you ended up in a place that you've been very happy with, obviously, and accomplishing a lot for other people. You obviously would have never seen yourself doing what you do now when you were 20. So you're a 15-year-old you and you're a burgeoning rock star. What would you tell that 15-year-old now?
I would tell that 15-year-old, pursue those dreams, live them, give it everything you've got, try to stay sober as much as possible. My friends were all stoners, but my band, we couldn't get high. We were too busy working on songs. Probably saved a lot of brain cells, but give it everything you've got, and do not, when you face your failures, which you will, have to go have a night, but then get back on the horse, keep going, work towards something, and understand that if you keep your energy and you keep your enthusiasm and you don't let it, the failures make you feel really negatively about the world and all your experiences in it, you don't know where you're going to be led to. I really feel like that search for tone for me made me like an ideal candidate to hear Dave's message about what ribbons could do and go, let's make this happen. And then that has helped so many other people now capture their tone. Like I was saying before, Ross Hogarth told Eddie Van Halen when he listened to the recordings that were made on Eddie's last record, you sure you want to commit to those guitars? I wanted you to hear something else first. And he put up 122Vs, the tube ribbon mics. Eddie recut most of the record.
Uh-huh.
Like I was saying before, Yo-Yo Ma, Joshua Bell, Eddie, Clapton, and so many of the phenomenal players in the world are using ribbons now because it really helps them capture the tone. And I feel like my prior experiences as a musician led to my being able to put a lot of energy behind Royer and go, hey, you guys, I understand your frustrations. I understand your issues. This is an answer. Try this. And man, I was running around LA for the first 10 years of Royer, constantly in studios, setting things up and watching people's eyes go like this, just introducing them to this technology. And all the stuff I did earlier as a musician and the frustrations I faced gave me a lot of information and energy to do this thing with. And it feels like, looking back, it's kind of what I was made for,
That's interesting because you made an observation earlier about doors closing.
Yeah.
And I've always been a firm believer that, the universe kind of delivers its path to you. That old
Well put.
yeah, that old cliche of life is what happens while we're busy making other plans. There's this path that we're all on. We have no idea what it's going to be, but as you say, when those doors close, it's because you're being directed to another path.
Yeah.
And I think, what you're talking about is kind of it's almost an acceptance of, okay, this is not necessarily where I thought I was going, but it's a cool ride.
It's a cool ride. Where else is this taking you? Where else am I going here? What else is opening up? What do I understand from all my experiences that maybe somebody else doesn't? Because a lot of people kind of went like this to Dave Royer. And when I met him, he was a frustrated guy that just felt like he wasn't being paid attention to. And then myself and Rick Parada, the president of Royer, we both had enough of a background to understand where Dave was coming from and go, oh, this is cool.
Yeah. You saw something in him.
Well, we saw something in him, but also in that technology he's talking about. It's like, Dave, why will this be so different? And when he explained it, and then when he created this first 121, it all started to make sense. And so if you allow yourself to get frustrated, negative, and just go screw it all, what are you taking away from the world later? What are you taking away from yourself that could be a fantastic ride later? Yeah, I lost out on big nights playing in front of big audiences that I was looking forward to and recording all sorts of stuff. I still love to write. I've got 3 or 4 ideas just from last night that I really want to pursue. When there's going to come a point where I turn my job at Royer over to somebody else, and believe me, I'm going to spend hours down here being a musician again. But what I'm saying is, when things don't work out, because so many times they won't, nobody who's done anything in life doesn't have failures behind them that they learn from. So learn from the failures, keep moving, keep your mind open, and look for the opportunities, and also look for where you can contribute something. Because the thing that really turned me on about Dave's ideas was, hey, if you're right, we can make a contribution. That led to a successful company too, which was cool. But part of the whole thing was just, we could really make a contribution to people who are having those same issues. It's an answer.
It is. And you're right. You never know where you're going to make that contribution. You never know where any particular talent that you have acquired or bit of wisdom that you have acquired is going to come in.
You don't. And then you don't know where that's going to take you. Royer's given me a very nice life, and a whole lot of friends, a lot of connections that I wouldn't. All the people that you wish you could have met earlier, it's like, tons of them now. It's great.
Yeah.
You can have awesome little dogs in your life.
Absolutely. It's great advice, man. It really is.
Thanks. Yeah. It's great having you here.
Thank you for being my guest.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Daniel.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.